Well, I hesitated about doing the topic this week because when you go messing around with the concept of love, it's like it's, it, it's dangerous waters. You never know what you're going to run into. But because it's been so used, so overused, so misapplied, so well applied, so as a word, standalone word, it's open to a lot of different interpretations. We use the word in a lot of different ways. In the email, there was a link to Merriam-Webster, and I think they do a really good job of referring to all the different contexts in which we use the word love. In comparison with, or considered alongside of compassion, I found it a really interesting idea because love and compassion oftentimes are in the same sentence or are meant to be synonymous. From my point of view, they're really not. Because love is a strong connection as a result of kinship or shared experience, something like that. An attachment to, and they talk about it, that it's applied to a person or a place or a thing. It can be applied to a place, like I love Lake Tahoe, or whatever. I love the sunrise this morning, which is intended to refer to a very deep experience, deep personal experience. When we talk about loving another person and loving other persons, then it gets kind of dicey. What does that really mean? And also when we love people, people who are close to us, and we get disappointed, or they pass away, or they're not doing well physically, or in some other way, then it's painful, or we find that we're really connected to their subjective experience. The reason I mentioned it is because the word compassion, it sort of shows up, sharpens the notions about compassion that we've talked about before, which are which are unbiased, and it's not attempting to create or avert any kind of outcome. When we're loving someone or something or what we're doing or whatever, then there's a time limit to it usually, and there's if we love someone, either we or them are going to part ways via death, passing, the human experience. In some way, connecting with something that is temporary. And whether it's a painting, an experience, a memory, a person, some people say, let's say, I love the Bible, or I love the Dhammapada, or I love this. Well, that's that's sort of in between, but the idea is that when we say we love something, it evokes a very deep sentiment or a statement of connection to whatever it is that we're referring. But with compassion, it's not personal, even for oneself, really. In other words, the compassion is like, say we talk about, as we have frequently, about extending compassion to everyone on the planet and to the planet itself. We're included in that, but we're not separate from. Or when we say to someone, I love you, there's a me and a you. I and thou. And the word love refers to the connection between. When I was writing the email, I was going, this sounds pretty negative, actually, about disparaging of the word love. But I think it's important to understand it in detail so that we can use it properly, because as I said in the email, that in entertainment media, the ones that are about love and affection or camaraderie, that sort of thing, the love between people is considered to be like a state of enlightenment, so to speak. It's the highest pinnacle of human experience, to be sought after and achieved by everyone if possible. And I found that, because you can't sell, I don't know if you can sell enlightenment. I mean, in the same way, I don't think it'd be as interesting. Love between two people, or whatever, family members or friends or compadres, whatever. Problematic. It can be a rough road to achieving that balance of self and other, with somebody close to us. So the idea was to think about compassion and love as sort of the pinnacle of caring for another individual or something or someone of a temporary nature, and it really has time wrapped up in it, and it's part of the package. And compassion, it's not. And we have compassion for somebody who's in a lot of suffering, and then it's just compassion. In other words, there's nothing we can do other than be compassionate towards someone, and if there is something we can do, we do it, but if not, we just can't. But we still radiate compassion. Or if we're a family member or somebody close to us decides we did something wrong, they don't ever want to talk to us again, well, you have to deal with that part of it, but ultimately we extend compassion to them anyway. We don't know if it's going to do any good or not, but it helps us to achieve a modicum of peace of mind with the circumstances. If we've done everything we can in a circumstance, in a relationship, and the other person, this happens often in alcoholic families where the family cannot forgive the alcoholic, just can't. Like, not ever. Don't ever want to talk to you again. I'm blocking you on everything, that kind of thing. And where there was, and there had been, love and affection. So when I'm talking with people who are in that position where they've been excommunicated from the family, or even after they get sober, there's sometimes some family members don't want to have anything to do with them, and that may be permanent. But the idea is, and this is what people in recovery do, they just be compassionate toward them. Because really, if someone has done everything they can in a relationship and the person is still angry, upset, or critical, there's nothing we can do about that. Somebody wants to hold the resentment, there's nothing we can do about it. When we talk about loving someone anyway, to me that spills over into compassion. Because compassion is standing at the ready to do whatever we can to help a particular situation, but only doing something when we can. And if we can't, all we can do really is send them compassion. And when it becomes murky, I thought about loving kindness exercises. I mentioned before that it works really well if somebody's having difficulty with compassion to do this loving kindness exercise, because it's not quite compassion, but it helps sort of grease the skids, grease the wheels a little bit. And a lot of times people have such a negative self-image. Compassion exercises, any of them, are too much. They bring up too much of the negativity, bring up the obstacles, which are formidable. So loving kindness helps to quiet all that down, just being kind to oneself. In considering the word love, again, I'm using it to bring greater distinction to the concept and practice of compassion. Compassion really functions on a much larger platform, so to speak, than the word love does. But both are inherent. We love people. Sometimes we love them just because we have a great friendship or a great connection via family. We will experience grief if anything happens to them. And that's where we can bring in compassion too, if we need to. Yeah, I didn't want to do this around Mother's Day or Valentine's Day or anything to get too confusing, but I thought it's worthy of consideration, because anything that can help us broaden our understanding and perception of compassion, to me, is really important. I say it perhaps too often, but how important it is. Like I said in the email, that when we lose something, when we lose a person or mobility or whatever it may be, then grief naturally sets in. But grief, like the mindfulness practice, is a space, it's a void. And the mindfulness practice, when we come to that point where the mind calms down enough that we can spend more and more time in between thoughts in that space. That's like grief in the sense they're both kind of like a space. And so with grief, that creates this void, because it's like that, we're talking about conceptual frameworks, and so all of a sudden something's taken out of that conceptual framework and it leaves a void. And that void, in the same manner as with mindfulness, gives us the opportunity to let compassion flow in and wisdom to flow in. And when we do that, people tend to think about all the amazing ways in which our life is different from, let's say, a particular person who's passed on, or someone we've admired, a writer or a speaker or something, and how much our life has changed because of them. And that gratitude begins to open the door to the recovery of grief. But in the process, having compassion for ourselves can be really helpful. Because, like I said, I said in the email, like, the dilemma is that we can't help but love. I mean, just can't help it, because it's the good and right, naturally occurring, good-hearted connection with others. That's really important, part of the human experience. Therefore, grief is part of the human experience. And in that grief, compassion can take over and lend a hand as well. So those are my thoughts. Any questions before we start? Okay. So we'll do an exercise starting out as usual with a mindfulness practice and move on from there. Okie dokie. Finding a comfortable position, and we'll begin. And easing into the present moment. Simply coming to be where we are right now as best we can. Letting thoughts and emotions, past and future, float away. Some of them may be fairly sticky, and if they are, that's okay. Making the conscious decision to let them go. And as the mind begins to settle down, this task gets easier. What it seems like, the mind really does like to be still at times. And perhaps further grounding in the moment by wiggling your toes or noticing the points of contact with the chair or the floor, or the sounds around you. Grounding to the moment, and the fact that what we're doing is just sitting. And allowing ourselves just to be in this space between thoughts, this mind space of natural mind. And as the mind settles, you can further settle in, letting go layer by layer. You may notice that the breath continues to slow. And noticing if there's any tension, to let that float away. And allowing ourselves to be concerned about nothing. To just sit and be for a few moments. Nothing to attend to, or fix, or change. And perhaps finding this place, this space of present moment, regenerative, restorative. Allowing ourselves just to be as we are. Allowing ourselves to be unburdened as best we can for a few moments. and settling into the space like a flat stone drifting to the bottom of the lake. And bringing to mind someone or some being that we really love, past or present. And just bringing them to mind. And experiencing this love for them as completely as possible, without obstruction or distortion. There can be reasons why or not. It just is because it is. And these feelings may turn into thoughts of reminiscence or instances that directly forge this love between you. And letting that light shine between you. And resonate. And simply allowing that connection to appear as real and full and rich as possible. In gratitude for their connection with you and vice versa, and your connection with them. And now, bring in the dynamics of compassion. That no matter what's going on with them or what they have done or what we have done, that may ping our conscience, and leaving aside any specific hopes or fears. Just knowing that we're present and ready to help in any way that we can, if necessary. or perhaps seeing the compassion as the outer shell. Also embodied within compassion. And allowing us to be with this person, separate and together. Knowing that compassion can envelop any and all sufferings or difficulties or confusions. Resolve resentments or hurts. And is unending. If you brought to mind somebody who has passed, knowing that somehow, getting a suspicion that somehow the compassion will find them. The compassion that we extend toward them. And being with them in this way is a unique and special experience. And perhaps knowing that we can love and be compassionate toward someone, both. Perhaps even simultaneously. And perhaps considering that this connection of love and compassion with this other being transcends time, so that even when we shift out of the practice, it will remain and part of us as long as we wish. And again, coming to rest in the moment as it is, in the space of present moment awareness. And allowing the body to absorb the whole experience as best we can. And allowing it to soak in. So when the bell rings again, you can bring this with you as you go about your day. And come back to it at any time.